Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and one of the things I've gotten to enjoy very thoroughly as a podcast host is I like to personally keep up with a lot of the people who have been on my show, and as I'm upgrading my website, I go back and revisit their content, and I've had a lot of times where I've gone back and their website has just been completely overhauled and it's amazing and spectacular, and I've seen how much they have added to it, whether it's new programs or new opportunities that they've been a part of, myself included. I've grown so much in the past year and a half. And so the gentleman we have today on the show, he was on the show about a year ago, and year can be a really short time, and it can be a really long time. It's how much you use it and how much happens. And I was actually thinking of him yesterday. I was with a gentleman in a Zoom call, the virtual water cooler by Steve Wright, and he was using the analogy of muscle tearing. And then went to talk about the brain. He goes, "Oh, I guess it's not the same." I said, "Well, actually, it is. That's the issue. People don't treat their brain like a muscle. You can overwork your brain. You can break it down a certain way to build it back up. You can rewire it. You have to provide it the right nutrition, the right sleep, the right energy. It is just like the rest of your body. And a lot of us don't get a personal trainer for our brain. We'll get one for our body, but isn't our brain more important than having big biceps, right? But a lot of people don't think to get a brain trainer and to get fit. So we are here with a man today who does just that. So, brain fitness, that's what we're going to be getting into today, breaking free of conformity and just working on your brain every single day. Mr. Arnold Beekes, so great to have you here again. And please fill us in on who you are and what the last year has been full of for you.
Well, happy to be here and thanks for the invite, Mr. Whiskey. So, yeah, it's been an exciting year in the sense of learning a lot, and learning a lot is not always fun. It's just like you. I'm
Right.
I'm continuing on what you said on creating a fit body, and it can be your muscle, but it can also be your endurance. It can be your flexibility. Most of the time, it's hard. It's not fun. It like you get to stretch yourself. But that's the same with your brain and your brain fitness is that in order to learn a lot, basically you need a lot of challenges. You need adversity. Not all of the time, but that's how you learn. If everything stays the same, there's no adversity, there's no challenges, whatever, I bet you won't learn much. Yeah? Yeah? So growing is dealing with adversity. And I've had a lot in the past year, so I can conclude I learned a lot. I just like yourself, I was like, oh, what did I add and change over year? It's really a lot. So, but I'm happy about that, and because it means I can help people better. I grow myself. I feel even more confident in what I'm doing and that it's necessary. So those things are really key.
Because you are a person who works as a coach and you have to get clients, how has that been, the evolution of being able to get clients? Did you have to change the way you talk to people? Was it the way you were guesting on shows? What have you found beneficial in terms of improving your connection with others and getting them to work with you?
Well, the main thing still remains, just like you said in your introduction, is that people don't know about brain fitness. Yeah, so it's not that people say, let's go, well, these days use some AI tool and and type in, oh, I want to have a couple of brain fitness sessions. That's not the case.
Right.
So that makes it hard for me to, well, to attract a lot of people because people don't know it. Yeah, if you don't know what you're searching for, you cannot search for it. So
Right.
That is the case, and that is why I'm doing a lot in presentations and shows like this to explain to people what it is. And the more people start to do, and in that way, I hope to create a ripple effect and attract more and more people.
Right. And so, how would you describe brain fitness? What is your breakdown and definition of it?
My definition is that brain fitness is a state of psychological and physical well being in which an individual uses his or her uniqueness, deals with challenges, learns continuously, and contributes to a better world for all.
For sure, I agree. And I think, like you mentioned, it's not always easy because you can want to learn a lot of things, and then you're like, well, I don't want to read books or I don't want to listen to podcasts. I don't want to take the time to put in the work. And I think you mentioned something I think is really beautiful, which is stretching. And like every good athlete, I don't do a lot of that before I work out like I should. And I'm sore and I tear stuff, but it's important to stretch before. It helps not only with your flexibility, but with warming up and injury prevention. And a lot of people don't prime their brain to learning. You can prime your brain, you can maximize how you're going to learn and the amount of information you're going to take out of it. People don't get enough rest. People are trying to study, pulling all. How many college kids, all right? I mean, be honest, how many college kids out there y'all pulling all nighter? You had weeks to study, and then the night before you stay up all night studying, and you go into the exam groggy. I think one of the most important things, if you would agree with me, is that when it comes to brain fitness, is people don't do the proper preparation.
Yes, but preparation and whether it's stretching, like you said, or anything else, it all boils down to discipline, and it boils
Mm,
down to creating what I call a daily ritual. We, I think we are made to be creatures of habit, of creatures of comfort. And so that is our default state. If we are not intentionally about what we're trying to change or grow or do this, our default state is no change, staying in your comfort zone.
hmm
I would add laziness to that. I think
Yeah.
laziness is built into our system. So it's not that person is lazy. No, we're all lazy. That is built into our system. And I'm not criticizing anything. But if you want to grow and change and or improve your work, your life, your work, your health, anything you want to improve and learn and grow, you need to change those habits. And you need to change them very, very consciously. Otherwise, you fall back to your default position, which is the laziness, the comfort zone, and basically doing the same day in, day out. So that's why I have a very simple process, but it requires discipline, which I call a daily ritual. And a daily ritual is it's just a document in which I list a set of questions, focus areas, inspirational quotes, and new things I want to learn. So it's a document which, at the moment, for myself, I do in the morning when I had my breakfast. Then I do in the afternoon. I do in the evening, and before I go to bed. And why is that? Because if I don't, coming back to you use the word priming, but it's also triggering. It's also inspiring. It's also motivating. Your brain is like, hey, Arnold, Mr. Whiskey, you were supposed to do something different. But if you don't trigger yourself at least 4 times a day, you will completely forget and it won't happen. That's the thing which happens, and there's a lot of scientific research around New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
People take these things like I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm gonna learn a new language. I'm gonna run a marathon. Doesn't matter what it is. After 1 month, I believe more than 90% of them are stopped. I
Yeah.
would stop if I don't continuously keep to triggering myself. It's like, hey, Arnold, you wanted to, let me give you an example. Listen to my heart. What people don't know, Mr. Whiskey, is that we actually have three brains, not just one. We have our head brain, which everybody associates with your brain, like it's in your
Right.
head. But we also have a heart brain, and we also have a gut brain.
Mm.
So, number one is if you're not aware of that, you cannot train it.
Right.
Huh? But once you know it, you got to do what it does and how to access it. So, what I'm doing myself, let's say a year and a half or so, I didn't know about, well, I knew about the heart brain a few years before, but I didn't know how I could use it, how I could apply it, how I could listen to it. We all know the voice in our head, which keeps on bothering us 24/7. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's constantly. Yeah,
Hmm.
they call it the monkey mind or the chatterbox. I mean, it's going on and on and on. Eh? But
Yeah.
there's also a voice in my heart. Huh? Voice from my heart brain. Yeah, that's also trying to say something to me, but I don't hear it because my head is making so much noise. So I started training myself, and I'm still doing it every day, 10-minute exercise to train my heart brain.
Mm.
So that's an example because I want to learn how to use it. It's been there basically all of my life, but I've been ignoring it, neglecting it, suppressing it so much that I don't hear it. I don't hear it for it. Now, because I'm practicing this, I'm getting so much input through my heart brain. It's totally changing my life. It's changing how I feel, how I build, how I deal with people, because I'm like, oh, this is what my heart is saying. And before I didn't hear it at all. And that's just a result of my daily rituals on my document. It says daily do this 10-minute exercise to listen to my heart. So that's why for any change, any growth, any learning, have this document which I have on my computer, I have on my smartphone, so I can just and I put it in my Dropbox. It's like, oh, is there? Boom, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah? And that way you don't forget. And in that way you build a habit by it. And then it can start to blossom. It can start to grow. And I get amazing results. So and I tried before because I heard about this, let's say 5 years ago. Oh yeah, heart brain, gut brain. Oh, okay. No clue how to address it. Yeah. And it was just more a cognitive thing. But now, because I added it to my daily rituals, it became a felt experience.
I have, at least for me, the document that I use is I have a whiteboard and I have check boxes next to it that I have to fill in. I think that is a great way to hold yourself accountable, making sure that you mark off you did it. That way, if for some reason I miss something, I see that empty checkbox. I say, hey, why didn't we do that today? And analyze what stopped us from doing it. Was it just laziness? Was it something got in the way? And then I know well, how can we make up for it? I think that's important. A lot of people, I'm not against having the document on your phone or your computer, but I think sometimes people put it there and then they forget to look at it. So if you're someone who have found that the technology is just not helpful for you, pin it to your mirror in your bathroom. To sometimes I know for me, if I really have a list of things to do or even a daily discipline, I'll put it on my front door. So that way when I go to leave the house, which I leave the house at least once a day, it's right there in my face. Like I can't say, "Oh, I didn't see it today." No, it's right there in my face. And it's like, "Hey, you're leaving the house and you didn't do your morning stuff yet." And it's like, okay, let me do that. And so, are you in the habit of reading a book every day? Do you read a new book once a month or once a week? What do you do as far as like learning and reading?
Well, a lot actually. I'm reading throughout the day scientific reports, articles, stuff, and I until well, that's a big change in this year. Actually, not even the last half year. I was reading 99% nonfiction. Yeah, so
Mm,
about neuroscience, yeah, about well, most things related to well, conditioning, to everything. How well, how does everything work inside ourselves, which is invisible? That was my reading. I don't have a goal like one book a week or one book a month, whatever. I basically read every day. Yeah? So
right, right.
what I changed, and that was my heartbreak, Mr. Whiskey, is that I started reading fiction again because I know that well, basically I love my work, so I'm working all the time, 7 days a week.
Yeah,
But I need to distract myself in a healthy way and do something which is fun rather than meaningful or useful. And I realized that as a kid, yeah, that's what until I was 12 before in I'm from the Netherlands before you go to high school I would read like crazy. I would also go to the library, but those were fun books because when you're young, these
right.
the adventure books and but also funny books. I mean, I used to read a lot, really, really a lot.
Yeah,
But then when I get to high school, you get these. Well, I don't know how that's in the U.S., but in Netherlands, you get they call it literally literature lists. It's like
yes.
for each language you gotta read a certain amount of books, and most of these books are from the Middle Ages or very old or whatever. So,
Hmm.
but
Same here.
I had I had a lot of languages. Yeah, I had Latin, Greek, English, Dutch, and German. That's a lot of reading and I didn't like it at all. I don't didn't like the books at all.
Yeah.
So actually, that's when I lost my appetite for reading because reading was a nuisance. I didn't love it. And then I got my corporate career and everything, and then I got the last 25 years where I'm being an entrepreneur. But I'm like, hey, I want to learn this, I want to learn this, I want to do this. So it's all the non-fiction thing. And then listening to my heart is like, I used to love reading fiction. So I started reading fiction again. This has just been a few months, and I'm totally enjoying it. Totally enjoying it. And I'm like, I feel much more that it's not a must, it's fun. So that's what I'm adding to my mix.
I think I'm so glad you brought that up because I think that's really important, which is when I had a dyslexia professor on my show. He was talking about one of the ways to get kids who don't want to learn interested is by having them read stuff that they're interested in. One of the issues with high school is that like, same here in America, you get these books, Old English, Shakespeare, all this stuff that you have to read. The best time of the year was with some of the summer assignments. You could pick out of a list of books what you wanted to read. So it was still a lot of books you didn't like, but at least you could pick something you were more interested in. When you work in your area of interest, it makes it easier. And what I say that for is if you're someone who's looking to read every day, but you're like, man, Mr. Whiskey, I can't keep reading all these historical documents or these neuroscience papers. Get into fiction reading because when you're interested in it, when you're reading about something you like, you're gonna want to consume that content more and you'll enjoy it. And fiction writing has a lot of real life value to it. You learn a lot about human connections and relations. Like fiction is a lot of it is based off of real life, right? I mean, I've read plenty of fiction books. I'm like, you sure this isn't real? Sometimes it's kind of uncanny. You read these fiction books about what the government's doing. You're like, I don't know if this is fake. I think this is real. There's been a lot of fiction books that have been made as satire or to call about a change without calling it out directly. I've actually had a lot of authors on this show who embedded reality into fiction to put forward a message that was, hey, this isn't a newspaper. This isn't on the news. This isn't a document. This is a fictional account, but it has a really important message. So I think if you're someone who has been struggling with reading daily, get into fiction reading and writing. And it could be something you really like. I think even with me, I do not like math at all. But I'll watch these guys on YouTube who will do math like, okay, if this fictional character can punch through a brick wall in 1 second and they calculate like how much force he would have to punch with it, they calculate like the density of the brick wall based off the size of the brick. And like I find that cool. Like when math is applied to fictional stuff that I'm interested in. So you can find ways to make learning fun. And I think that goes back to brain fitness in general. There's so many different ways to work out, and you can find one that is good for you. Some people are power lifters. Some people like to go for long runs. I'm guilty of that. Some people like to swim. Some people like to do Pilates. I think brain fitness is one of those things. There's a lot of stuff that is for everyone to do that you should do. And then you can also kind of niche down into something that is more your specialty.
Yes, obviously, by building it a habit, that is one thing, but it works even better if you're inspired and motivated to do it. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that is just a matter of experimenting and trying, say, because a lot of things we don't know. And I say to people, just try. I once had a client in my coaching practice, and she said, my dream is to that I can afford to have my own horse, that I can put it somewhere in the stables, and then after my work, I can go to the horse, I can take care of it, and I can ride my horse in the evening, and in the weekends, I can ride my horse. I would love to have that. I said, well, sounds interesting, sounds really nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden a horse? The answer was no.
Yep.
So what I told her is like, please take a couple of lessons to try, because riding a horse is not easy and it can be
No.
quite frightening. And yeah, it's like, and especially if you're in your first couple lessons, you drop off or anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so you gotta try it. It can make your love 10 times bigger, but also like, oh, this is so frightening. This is nothing for me. So that's why I say to people, just try new things. I I try. Well, maybe I'm a bit over the hill with these things, but I tried living in another country. For most people, that's like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. Eh?
Mm.
You're from the U.S. Well, I know you are not, but a lot of other people they never been out of the country because it's such a huge country.
Yeah.
But I, when in my corporate career, I also had worldwide the responsibilities, and our headquarters was in the U.S. So I was always in the plane, and then I flew to the US, and then you get to the airport, you rent a car, and then you're in a hotel, and then you go to the office, and then back again. That's when I developed the ideas like, I would like to live in the US. For a lot of reasons, nothing to do with myself. It never happened, but it still was in the back of my mind. It's like, I really would like to experience how it is from living in another country. So that's what I did the first time 9 years ago. I first started in Vietnam, and then I ended up in Budapest in Hungary, where I lived for a year. And I didn't know how it would be because I never had that experience. And I totally loved it. Well, when I started in Vietnam, I didn't like it because, and that was the pollution and the
Mm,
heat and everything. And when I was in Budapest, I was like, this is one of the best things that ever happened in my life. But I didn't know that. And
right.
I calculated, like, well, if it was lousy, I would have gone back. I had to go back after Budapest to take care of my mother, and she passed away. And then I was free to, and that's why I'm currently in Romania. It's not going to be my final destination, but it's like, hey, I'm going to try another country. So, but I didn't know that up front. If you would have said to me a long time ago, said, Arnold, you're going to live in Romania, I'm like, what? So with all these things, what I'm saying to people, try, give it a try, experiment. And if it works out, good for you. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah, I think to bring it down to a smaller sample, a lot of people haven't left their hometown even or their state in the United States or their city, whatever it may be. So just starting with that, and I can speak from personal experience. I mean, Mr. Bakes, in our first episode together, we really focused on conformity. You and I having strict dads and getting these haircuts and all that stuff. And my dad kind of raised me to be wary of traveling, almost xenophobic. Don't go live in another country. Outside the U.S., every country is like a third world country. And this past year, I've actually left the country for the first time. I went to my first cruise, but then I also went and stayed in Japan for a few weeks, and I'll be going back for a few months here. And it was a wonderful experience. It's different, right? It was a big culture shock from US to Japan, very different. I went from being very loud to very quiet, and you can't just be loud, but it was very, very nice. I do think everyone should travel. I grew up very homebody. Why would I ever leave my home? I have everything I need right here. But that goes back to what you said about creatures of comfort and laziness and habit. And we need to push out that comfort zone because then you can expand it. I've traveled in multiple states now. I remember I grew up in New Jersey thinking it was the best place, and then I got down south and the air was clean and blue, and I was like, wow, like this is life. So I've really grown to love traveling, and I think just on the example you used, everyone should try. I'm not saying go live in another country, but you should at least visit another country and further than just the tourist stops, go a little deeper, get into the local culture. And I think that's with anything, like you said, horseback riding, maybe it's a new sport. I'm always looking to try new sports and new stuff and looking up new stuff because you never know what you're going to like or not like. As you mentioned, you just have to try it. And most of the time, it doesn't hurt. Maybe it costs you a couple bucks and some time, but you tried something you didn't like it. And I think there's not a lot of downsides to it. Just on the plus side, if you like it, you like it. And now, on the topic of the interest of the heart and the human heart, you have a book, The Adventures of Dr. Alfred Moore, Tales of Transformation. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Just speaking of all reading and writing, you yourself have a book.
Yes, that's something I had to learn as well because in the corporate environment, the only thing I wrote were short sentences like "Yes, I agree" or "I don't agree," and or even the biggest tech was a performance review, one of my direct report. For the rest, I didn't write much. So I was not a writer, but when I'm talking about the beginning of the 2000s, that's when blogs started, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try a blog." And it meant that everything. I had to write something new, so I wrote twice a week. That's how my writing started. But it was totally new. It was not a hobby of me. It was like, hey, I had to learn. So, and then at some point, it like, maybe I can write a book. So I've written 4 or 5 books. And my first book was actually in Dutch, but the rest of the book were in English. Yeah, my mother tongue is Dutch, yeah, so I'm an extra complication. I write in English, which is not my mother tongue. The book about Alfred Morris, I wanted to write about. I call them tales. I call them tales of transformation. Why do I call them like that? Because I want to give people in the format of a story that people like transformation, change, growth can be something not only cognitively, but something what they feel and something where they can relate to. And what it's about is that Alfred Moore is a person. In my case, I used it from Budapest where I lived, so I could write a little bit about that. And he and his parents pushed him to be a doctor and work in a hospital. So that's what he did. And that's how most of us start our career. We do something which a lot of parents have a lot of influence or whatever. And that's how we started.
Yeah.
And then he realized, like, I'm a heart specialist. So he was treating people who had heart attacks and everything like that. But just like me and just like you and just like everybody else, he had no clue about the heart brain. If you go now to
Mm.
any hospital and you ask them, is there a heart brain? They will say no. Yeah? So that's when he found out that, like, well, that's much more interesting. And he was also frustrated with the fact that he would get repeat customers, we would say. It's like, yeah, they get a heart attack and then they go out of the hospital, they start smoking again or drinking again, and then they come back again. When he was frustrated, it doesn't work. So that's when he related, like, I want to know more about this heart brain and how this works. And he's like, hey, in that case, working on your heart brain fitness as well and everything, that really cures people.
Mm.
And then he came to the conclusion, like, he was talking to his bosses in the hospital, like, why can't we include this in our treatment and do this thing? And then that's what happens basically everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, you were in the military, it doesn't matter. It happens everywhere. People don't want change. So it like,
Mm.
no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to. But this cures people. And what we traditionally do brings people back in the hospital. Well, that's not what they say, but that's how they make money. So
Yeah.
like, that's when he tried to change the system, and it didn't work. This is a common experience for all people who work in the change area, like myself. And then he like, I'm gonna start something for myself. So he created something like a health center, and then he got visited by the police. They even took him. I'm not gonna explain what happened because then I will screw up the climax of the book. But he he got out, and then he created a community of people who wanted to live healthy and take care of their life and work together to build a better world. That is what it's about. So it's the journey from a very traditional upbringing and background and experience
Mm.
towards a person who really contributes to a better life and really is in the end himself much more healthier and happier.
Are you sure this is fiction and not a nonfiction? Because that's what it sounds like. What
It's
you're
a
saying is,
combination. It's a combination. That's
yeah,
why I
because,
call it tales of transformation. So
mm,
I want to make it easier to people because it's not a big book. It's like that people start to relate. It like instead of say follow step 1 to 5, it like they read that story, and by reading that story, you're like, so that's how it works.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then I want to talk a little bit about you helping people with their brain heart and their brain and their gut brain. You've got master classes, you do coaching. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and who should work with you?
Yeah, so I got basically two other products. One is what I call master classes. These master classes are videos where I'm kind of giving you a personal workshop around a specific workshop. Yes, about the specific topic. Yes, so it's like it's well, it's not live. It's recorded. I'm using my business partner as the person who I'm giving a workshop, but it's like pretending is like you're getting a personal workshop around your uniqueness, about emotions, about building, about relationships, about building habits, about aging. You know? So those are the master classes which people can buy. And the other thing is my flagship training program, which is a 15-week training program, which has one live session of 90 minutes each week. So I take you to the 6 R's. I will explain it in a minute. People do this, and then in the week in between, where there's no session, hopefully you start to experiment. You start to learn, read about it, and apply it in your own life. And then we have another session and another session. And that's called From Fitting In to Flying Out. That's my training program. Do you want me to explain quickly the 6 R's?
Yes, thank you.
I call them the 6 R's. These are kind of the 6 step. Number one is to reveal that most of us work in a cage, like we discussed a lot in our first session. So people can go to that one. And the cage is jobs. You need a job to earn money. Then you need to consume, meaning you got to get your food, you got to get your car, you got to get a house, whatever. That is all not nice. And then you need entertainment to distract yourself from the other two. So, but it's a loop where you cannot get out.
Right.
Eh? So I reveal a lot of straitjacket strategies to keep people in that cage. The second step is to recover from addiction and suppression. Most people are addicted to something, whether it's coffee to alcohol or anything else, shopping, porn, and suppression. We're suppressing most of the time our emotions. We're suppressing our heart and listening to that. The next one is reactivate in mostly in business, but in non in charity as well. It's only mental. We don't focus on our emotions, on our physical well-being, spiritual well-being, environmental. So we don't focus. It's only mental. So the rest of the things we have but need to be activated. Then we gotta reset our lens. We gotta look at ways of living our life from the inside out rather than from the outside in. The next step is, is that people gotta relearn things, because basically what you learn at school, universities, vocational training, in the military, at the moment it's totally useless for daily life. It's totally useless. It doesn't help you in your life. It doesn't help you in your work. There's a huge disconnect. So you
Yeah.
gotta swing your skills, your mindset, everything you gotta relearn. And the next step is, once you've done that, you can recreate your environment, recreate your work, recreate your life, maybe recreate your neighborhood, your city, your country. Anything is possible.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially with the university, the military, the schooling. I wish here in America, and I'm not sure about other countries, I wish there was more adulting, more life skills. There's a lot of education specific to your degree just to get the degree. I think a lot of college kids I've talked to who graduated complain that a lot of the stuff they learned to get their degree, they didn't learn the stuff to actually use the degree. So I think it's important to constantly be learning, like you said, life skills, personal development, and working out your brain. And I think that is so important to recognize that a lot sometimes people get tied up. Well, I have a degree, I know everything. You have a degree in very specific things. So, sometimes it's dinosaur fossils, but how does that help you at whatever you're doing today? Not knocking anyone who studies dinosaur fossils, but you got to constantly learn. Life is so many different working parts, and you got to learn it all together. And yeah, I agree with everything you said. And for anyone who wants to dive deeper into that stuff, we're gonna have your website in the description below where they can check out brain fitness. They can check out masterclass. You've got videos, you've got podcasts, you've got your book. And so, as we wrap this up, what would be your final message to everyone about brain fitness?
I'm going to share three simple things, but they're not easy. Yes,
Mm,
simple is not the same as easy. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Number one, be kind. Be kind to yourself, and then be kind to others. Why am I saying that? Because I would say all people, you're very unkind to yourself. That voice inside of you, we call
Hmm.
it the inner critic. It's really
Yeah.
awful what it's saying to yourself all day.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? That's the reaction I get from everybody when I
Yeah.
explain that. Like, yeah, yeah,
100%.
I recognize that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So be kind to yourself. And when you're kind to yourself, it's much easier to be kind to other people.
for sure.
Next step is be present. Sounds also simple, but it's not easy because we
No.
either live in the past because it's like this person said this and he did that and my father did this and he shouldn't have done this, yeah. Or we live in the future, like, oh, I got these exams, or there are layoffs at my work, and I might be thinking about, yeah. So we're living in the past and or in the future, but not in the present. The third step is be creative. We are, and it doesn't mean you got to paint a Rembrandt, yeah, or design a new cathedral or whatever. It can be a small thing. Try a new ingredient in your food. Drive a different way to your work. Listen to a total different. If you never listen to classical music, listen to classical music. If you've been reading like myself, only non-fiction, read fiction. Yeah. So it's a way of using this. It's a muscle which we all have, but actually there's been studied that since our we were 5 to 7 years old, we're at the peak level of our creativity. Isn't that incredible? Huh?
Mm,
So since that age, it's been suppressed and totally ignored. Because in businesses and military, they don't want you to be creative. Huh?
yeah.
So be creative, yeah. Be kind, be present, be creative.
I love that. I love all that. I think I agree with it 100%. And I think that creative part is very important. And like you said, and like we said, even with the working out and the brain trading, there are so many ways to be creative. It could be gardening, it could be sculpting, it could be clay work, it could be sewing. There's so many different ways to be creative and to activate those parts of your brain. And it's very de-stressing too. It's set aside a little bit of time every day to create. But Mr. Bakos, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Glad to see you again and to see so much great stuff happening in your life. I know you said there's plenty of adversity that happened behind the scenes that we're not seeing that helped you learn and grow. And I'm glad that you're able to use that to help other people. And I'm excited for what the future holds. And I hope to connect with you again. Until then, thank you.
Thank you for. I can see that you have grown as a host a lot. Is That's really nice
Thank
to
you.
see it.